I mean, we're a few weeks away from probably one of the worst realities of our lifetime.
Actually, it's 2 weeks to be exact.
It's a huge struggle. It breaks you down, like you cry.
2 weeks until the eviction moratorium in Oregon ends.
Right now, we're 3 months rent back.
And then rent is due, whether you can pay or not.
And you look at, little faces and they don't understand. You're doing everything you can.
Here's the story. A lot of anxious people tonight. I know it's been like that for a while now. I'm Dan Haggerty. Hi. Welcome to the story. All the ways to communicate with us at the bottom of the screen. Keep those coming tonight. We do want to jump right into things and talking about what you kind of just heard, the reality looming over a lot of Oregon renters who are having a hard time making ends meet right now. For most of 2020, local and state governments have put moratoriums on evictions, and that's really saved a lot of people from essentially not having a place to live. And experts have warned, though, if it expires, before people get back to work and start making some money again, tens of thousands of Oregonians could lose their homes. Here's what one advocate told our Maggie Vespa this week about the statistics they're seeing right here in Oregon.
And the Stout research is the one that we tend to look to the most. They have been doing updates of their data every 2 weeks. And they say between, I believe it's 25,000 to 57,000 folks, households, may be at risk of eviction on January 1st.
57,000 households, 57,000, 25,000 on the low end. Like that's the good-looking scenario, and they're unfathomable numbers. To put that into perspective, the last federal count from January of 2019 showed nearly 16,000 people were homeless in Oregon, and we know what that situation has done to the state. So this new estimate in the worst-case scenario could more than quadruple that if it expires, and that's amazing to even think about. But again, that's a big if. And right now we want to talk about the things that are being done to try and stop that from happening, at least in the short term. First, this morning, Multnomah County commissioners, they threw out a major lifeline for Portland renters. They extended the county's eviction moratorium. So Multnomah County renters now have until January of 2022 to pay back all of the rent that they owe. That's a full year. But again, that's only specific to Multnomah County. So you might be wondering to yourself right now, yeah, what if I live anywhere else in the entire state of Oregon? Well, that brings us to our big story. Because if you live anywhere outside of Multnomah County, well, that extension simply just does not apply to you. And Oregon's eviction moratorium will expire on January 1st. That's the plan, in which case you now have two hopes. One, next week's special session in Salem. Lawmakers could extend the statewide eviction moratorium by 6 months. That's the talk right now, which would take us to the middle of 2021. They're also considering paying landlords, who are also hurting badly during all of this, as much as 80% of what they are owed in unpaid rent. In fact, leaders are hearing public comments on this very plan as we speak, doing this show live right now. It's happening this very second in Salem. Number two, Congress, could pass a second federal relief package. And the word is they're actually pretty close to doing this. And this bill could include another round of modest stimulus checks, along with relief funding for people who need to make ends meet right now. And while hope is a great thing, we all need hope, neither of these relief packages are a guarantee. Not yet, anyway. The special session could very well flop. We've seen that happen with Oregon legislative sessions in the past. And we don't need to remind you that Congress is often hopelessly gridlocked. So, all that in mind, we thought it was important to put faces to the needs we're talking about and meet some of the people who need our leaders to come through. Maggie Vespa met some of them.
I mean, we're a few weeks away from, probably one of the worst realities of our lifetime.
One of the worst realities of our lifetime in an already gutting year.
The work in the restaurants stop, families with kids without food and no money for the rent.
Tens of thousands of Oregon renters worry 2020's final blow will be homelessness.
It breaks you down, like you cry. You think about it and you look at little faces and they don't understand, and you're doing everything you can.
This week, 3 renters told KGW their stories.
I mean, Taylor's cried about it numerous times.
Ryan Bowser, his girlfriend Taylor, and her daughter are all on the brink of being evicted from their Corvallis apartment. Ryan and Taylor both clean classrooms at Oregon State University, but off and on throughout the pandemic, child care needs have forced at least one of them to stay home and forfeit a paycheck.
We pay about $11.65 a month. It, I think, varies a little bit based on utilities, but right now we're 3 months rent back.
3 months back, and he just learned his girlfriend is pregnant.
We're kind of still processing that while still trying to, I guess, process the possibility of being homeless in a couple of weeks. So,
Bowser is going public with his fears because he thinks unemployment stats don't tell the whole story.
There's an underrepresented amount of people, I think, who kind of slipped through the cracks in the pandemic so far. Because you have the unemployed who are mostly covered by the unemployment bolster of $600 a week, which was great for people, and I'm really happy that happened for them. But then you had folks like me, and it's not obviously just me, who they didn't lose all of their income, but they lost enough of it to where making ends meet was impossible.
This community is a community pobre, comunidad pobre.
Very low income.
It's very low income.
Working as a seamstress, Melissa Torres is the main breadwinner for her family of 6. They live in a trailer in Northeast Portland's Coley neighborhood. For now, she has the most protection of the 3 renters we talked to by virtue of where she lives. Thursday morning, Multnomah County commissioners voted to extend their eviction moratorium, giving renters until January 2022 to catch up on back rent. Torres has been able to get some help covering rent through COVID relief funding dispensed by the county. But all this aid is shaky, and she argues Oregon's politicians don't realize people of color disproportionately live on the brink of homelessness.
They need help us too. Need see that my forma de vida, mi estilo de vida.
My way of life.
¿Lo puedes decir?
My way of life.
In all, advocates estimate anywhere between 25,000 to nearly 57,000 Oregon households are at risk for eviction come January 1st. That is, unless state lawmakers extend Oregon's moratorium on evictions. It's on the table of bills to consider during the special session in Salem next week.
I feel like they're hopefully not going to just give us all the boot.
Bethany Anderson of Polk County, Oregon, is afraid to bank on it.
I don't take for granted the fact that January 1, they can put an eviction notice on my door if I don't have that rent that's past due paid.
Anderson is a new mom to 10-month-old Kane. She lost a job in the beginning of the pandemic and hasn't been able to get work since. Her husband works in tech, and the family loves their 2-bedroom apartment.
It is really nice. $1,000 a month. And then we're currently only behind $4,000.
Like all 3 we talked to, Anderson knows she's one of many behind on rent. She actually considers her family lucky.
There's people who are behind so much in rent that it's like you look at it and that's not even a mountain. That's like 20 mountains. How are you going to climb that?
So she, like Bowser and Torres, is hoping politicians will make the climb easier. Anderson will be watching the special session eagerly. If it fails and she's evicted, she's decided the family will just physically refuse to leave.
I'm not going to go in the middle of winter and sleep in my car with a baby. And I figure that if there's this many people that are struggling and there's this many people that face this, I don't feel like they're going to send that many sheriffs out to one by one put everybody out of their door. I mean, there's got to be human compassion somewhere, because right now, I don't know, you need something, and not a lot of us have money anymore.
Okay, Maggie Vespa joining us now. Now, Maggie, before we get into the politics and the policies and all that stuff, let's talk a little bit about these renters who shared their stories with us, because they were pretty personal. Can you explain a little bit how you got connected with them?
Yeah, definitely. We always want to kind of pull back the curtain on that. So
essentially in every way possible. I mean, we posted on social media, in groups for unemployment benefits and support in that way, in groups for eviction protection. And then we went through nonprofits that work with people and help get housing relief funding to them. We went through county housing departments. But really, it's worth saying each of our renters came forward and volunteered to talk. And a lot of them have thought about doing so because this special session is approaching, and they want to get their stories heard. And we should also point out, they know this is not just an Oregon problem. This is a national problem. And one stat estimates between 2.4 million and 5 million American households could be facing eviction next month as moratoriums like this run out across the country. So this is huge.
Yeah. So so a very timely special session to discuss this. And, you know, we spend a lot of time talking about renters, but this is also going to deal with landlords. And, you know, they're owed a lot of money right now, money they use to pay the mortgage or pay taxes or upkeep on the home, things like that. What's the conversation going to be like when it comes to landlords?
It's a huge conversation as well. I mean, as you pointed out, so in the special session, you talked about that eviction moratorium bill. And a big part of that is that some state lawmakers want to put forward a bill that basically would set up a fund where the state can pay up to 80% of what landlords in Oregon are owed right now, as long as those landlords then forgive the debts of their tenants. There has been some pushback because some state lawmakers say that the fund that the state would pull that from, that they wouldn't have enough money to cover all landlords. And then others have said, seems like a really nice idea in theory, but they don't think the bill is kind of thought through well enough. That said, you know, the deadline is here and this moratorium ends with the year, and the special session is happening Monday. So they don't have a lot of time to kind of work this out. We do, though, want to dive more into that. So we're going to do kind of a part 2 on this story here on The Story tomorrow night and really look at the plight of landlords here in Oregon and those bills and those efforts to give them some help as well. So that's tomorrow night.
Yeah, a lot of people anxious to see that, especially because lawmakers are hoping to complete this special session in just one day. So that's a lot of work to do in a short amount of time. All right, Maggie, thank you. Now, Election Day, I think it's far enough in the rearview mirror at this point to where we can address how funny it was that we thought it was that stressful, which it was. But 2 candidates for one of Oregon's top offices they're back in the headlines, and for very different reasons. And that would be Oregon Secretary of State-elect Shemia Fagan, a Democrat, and the woman who she defeated, Republican State Senator Kim Thatcher. Hopefully you became familiar with both of them because we talked to them both during the campaign when they ran for Secretary of State. And in the end, Fagan pulled out the win, so she's going to be sworn in next year. So why are we talking about? Why are they back in the headlines? Well, let's start with Shemia Fagan. She's under fire right now after a right-wing media site published photos of her and her partner hosting a birthday party during the governor's most recent COVID-19 freeze. There are 2 photos in the piece, one showing a group standing outside under a pop-up tent. There are about 8 people visible from our count in this picture here. From the faces we can see, they're all wearing masks. In a second photo, Secretary-elect Fagan is standing outside without a mask with her partner and 2 others. So we know that that second unmasked photo was apparently taken during the setup for that party, and despite accusations in the article, we're being told that nobody from outside Fagan's household actually went inside. But still, I mean, the governor's freeze banned hosting more than 6 people from more than 2 households. I think I said that until I was blue in the face on this show. And I know it made a lot of people upset. A lot of people didn't like it, but those were the rules. And there are definitely more than 6 people in that first photo. So we asked Secretary-elect Fagan about it, and she admitted she had a party last Sunday for her preschooler. She says to seek a sense of normalcy. She insisted the gathering was small. It was outdoor. It was during the party. Everybody was entirely masked. But her statement does continue. It says, quote, "Yet as an Oregon leader, when I fall short, I will own up to it. I assume by having only my family and 2 other children with a parent present in my driveway, socially distant, with everyone wearing masks and no one allowed in the house, it meant I was in compliance with the executive orders. I was wrong. I am sorry. Now, whether you accept her apology or not, that is entirely up to you." Now, as for Fagan's former opponent, Senator Kim Thatcher, her controversy is an entire different matter. See, during President Trump's unsuccessful attempt to overturn election results, Texas's Attorney General sued several key states to try and do that. And a few other states' attorneys general jumped on board, but not Oregon AG Ellen Rosenblum. But Senator Thatcher signed onto a letter last week trying to convince her to change her mind. Now, keep in mind, We just experienced a fair election without any proof to say otherwise. The letter said, quote, "We believe that fair elections are vital to our democratic republic and that the submission of electors by these 4 states should be at least postponed." Of course, it wasn't postponed, and the Electoral College voted on Monday, and now Joe Biden is president-elect. But the reason that we think this is important is because Senator Thatcher was very close to being Oregon's Secretary of State, the person in charge of our elections. And by signing this letter, it seems to indicate that she thinks that this presidential election wasn't fair. Based on what? I don't know, but I don't want to put words in her mouth. The problem is, we asked Senator Thatcher for a comment yesterday. We have not heard anything back yet, but when we do, we'll be sure to pass it along.
A lot can change in 24 hours. Viewers want to know why we made such a big deal about Oregon waiting an extra day to start vaccinating against COVID-19. So I'll tell you why. And I promised a viewer that we'd dig around in the KGW vault for something on the famous downtown horse rings. And, well, we didn't really find anything. But we did find something about the beavers. No, not those beavers. Those beavers. When the story continues.
Welcome back. Keep emailing us. Use Twitter and that hashtag HeyDan. Lots of people doing that tonight. We got an important piece of viewer feedback I want to jump right into right now. And if you've caught our shows recently this week, you might have noticed we've been going pretty hard on the fact that Oregon hospitals waited a couple of days to start inoculating against COVID-19. Even though the first shipment of Pfizer's vaccine arrived at local hospitals on Monday and other states started immediately giving shots when they got theirs, Oregon waited until yesterday, making us the 49th state behind only Tennessee to start. Hospitals said that they wanted to focus on safety rather than being first. And our kind of harsher coverage earned some harsh criticism from viewers like Dwight Jurdy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not. He wrote in yesterday and said, in part, "Hey, Dan, I have to say I've lost respect for you over how you made such a big deal about Oregon being the 49th state to start giving vaccinations. I mean, really, you are making such a big deal about 24 hours. Had they rushed to be first and wasted some of the vaccine, then there would be complaints about incompetence and failure regarding such an important health issue." So first of all, thank you so much, Dwight, for that feedback, truly. Although I do want to point out that Oregon was actually more like, 48 hours behind other states, not really 24 hours behind. And I addressed this a little bit last night in the show, but I want to go into a bit more detail right now. I completely understand, first of all, the hospital's desire to want to be safe and want to be as safe as possible. But I also get an email in my inbox every single day from the Oregon Health Authority telling me how many people that they're reporting have died from COVID-19. It was 21 today, by the way. Yesterday, it was 48. Every day we aren't doing everything in our power to fight this virus is a day lost, isn't it? Hasn't that been what we've been told this whole time? A somewhat related question from a viewer named Wendy now, and she said, many of the people on today's list actually died months ago, like some as far back as May. Any idea why they would be counted in today's reported deaths? Now, this is kind of a difficult question, but it is one that's important to answer, especially considering what I just said. The OHA says it can sometimes take weeks or even months for death certificates to be reviewed by various organizations. And when those deaths are finally recorded, the OHA then sends them to their daily press releases. Most happen pretty quickly. All right, some take, though, 2 months. Others date several months back, like the ones Wendy pointed out, happening back in May. So I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but there was a huge shift today in the world of baseball. And before you ask, no, it has nothing to do with whether or not Portland is going to get a baseball team ever. But it does have to do with righting a 100-year-old wrong. See, back then, black athletes couldn't be part of Major League Baseball, of the MLB. They had to be part of the so-called Negro Leagues. And as a result, all of the stats and records from the Negro Leagues were kept separate from MLB stat keeping. That is, until this week, when the MLB said all of those stats will now be recognized as Major League Baseball stats. And it got us thinking about a player on an old team here in Portland, the Beavers. That is the Pacific Coast League's Portland Beavers. They weren't affiliated with the Negro Leagues, but one of their players was Artie Wilson Sr., who played for the Negro League's Birmingham Black Barons in the 40s before making his way west here to Portland. KGW did a fair share of reporting on the Beavers back in the day, and Wilson Sr. makes an appearance in the KGW vault.
By the mid-20s, Vaughn Street Park was the place to be in Portland. In 1925, opening day was like a holiday, a happening. All roads, it seemed, led to Vaughn Street.
Play ball, gee, it's a wonderful day. Play ball, let's get the game underway.
Before the game, Rose Princesses frolicked in the raciest, most liberated outfits of the day, then presented Beaver ballplayers with roses and best wishes. Mayor George Baker threw out the first pitch, and just like that, baseball season in Portland was underway. It would happen like that for the next 68 years.
Play ball, gee, it's a
in those days, old Vaughn Street, that was the place because those people go hanging on trolleys to get out there.
This was a social event, and men wore hats and white shirts and ties and suits, and women wore furs and dresses and high heels.
School closed on Tuesday, opening day. All the schools closed. Everybody was supposed to go to the ball game, whether they did or not. The kids, I don't know.
Through the 30s and 40s, Beaver baseball flourished. The Pacific Coast League was independent then. They bought and sold players' contracts just like the major league teams. These weren't just farm clubs.
Back those years, Coast League could have been a third major league. Could have been a third major league.
That was Artie Wilson right there. You know, and in reporting this story today, our Devin Haskins, our reporter on the story, talked to somebody actually who knew Artie Wilson Sr. pretty well, Artie Wilson Jr.
They used to call my dad Octopus because they said if the ball was hit anywhere close to second or third base as a shortstop, he would get it. I think my dad now is going down as the last 400 hitter, batting .402 in 1948. I think he would say it's about time. And when he says that, it's not with anger or resentment, but they finally get it.
I got some chills during that story. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what some stories do that to me and some don't. Don't we need baseball here in this city? Come on, man. Man, something about it. Hey, if you have something we want to check out, you want us to check out in the KGW Vault, contact us. It's really easy. You can use Twitter, #HeyDan, Instagram. We're on there too. There are a lot of platforms. Whatever one you use, I'm pretty sure we use it too. So just reach out and say hello. We'll look stuff up for you. When I come back, I admit defeat. Yes, you heard me. I tried to make a viewer's wish come true and I couldn't. I'll explain. Give me about 2 minutes. I'll see you then. All right, Kelly Harris asks, does the KGW Vault have anything about Portland's historic sidewalk horse rings? #Keep Portland weird. So full disclosure, Kelly, we actually, we have to check. But consider this our word that tomorrow we're going to dig around in the vault and look for more information on Portland's sidewalk horse rings. My word is like oak. All right, sorry to say. We did kind of put the cart before the horse on that one because that was on Tuesday. I said we'd look tomorrow, which was yesterday, and we didn't. But to viewer Kelly, we did look today. And I'm afraid I have some bad news. No dice. We couldn't find anything. I mean, that happens from time to time, I guess. But we did want to do something on the horse rings to try and make it up to you. So we reached out to Peabot about them and found out that they actually ask contractors to save them when they do construction, and then they reinstall them when they're done. Here's an example that was sent to us in Northeast Portland. They even spray paint horse ring there on the curb so that they would install the ring right back where it originally was. Peabot says that they even tell the contractors, if you, for some reason you can't reinstall them, save them, don't throw them away. So this is something very important to this area, as it is important to Kelly. So I'm sorry that we couldn't find exactly what you were looking for, but you got something out of this little segment. Not a lot of time for comments here, but I want to read an email I got from John G. during the show. Hi, Dan. My wife and I enjoy the story. Neither of us think you're a dork. Are people saying I'm a dork? Laurel, are people saying that?
Not me.
Yeah, no, I didn't think so. Laurel said it, and you got to trust her. That's the story. See you back in a moment.